Making Moves in the Marketplace is a program dedicated to providing a forum for elite social entrepreneurs doing significant acts of good for our world by impacting their own sphere of influence. These unique individuals are following their calling and encouraging success, and not just for themselves. Listen to these interviews and be inspired, as well as obtain contact information so you can get firsthand advice. So let's meet our guests on Making Moves in the Marketplace.
On behalf of Making Moves in the Marketplace, this is Ed Bracey, and today my special guest is Jeannette Ceja. Thank you, Jeannette, for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Ed. It's a true pleasure to be with you and everyone listening today.
Well, great.
I am wonderful.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, Jeannette is a travel expert, and I want her to explain to us what that means in her sphere of influence. A travel expert in what areas, Jeannette?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll just give you a little background to
Please do.
Where my expertise began. It really began, my parents are from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since I can remember, to this day, I travel frequently to Mexico to visit my family that's over there. And then it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that my mother took my family on a trip to Europe. And it partly was because it was my grandmother's dream to go to the Vatican and see the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
And her health was declining, and my mom knew it was a good time to go. And we did like a 2-week European tour. It was on a bus, and it was, I think, 10 or 8 countries. Every 2 days was a new country. So I was blown away by this trip. And I got a notebook and I got a disposable camera, and I just started writing everything down, journaling, taking pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share with everyone about the world. And I honestly feel that's where the passion for travel was ignited in me, my passion for travel journalism and my passion for travel just in general. That's where it all started for me. And I remember very specifically sitting on the bus, just writing constantly from location to location. And I believe that's when my expertise began, because I've never stopped since then. Always been educating myself, writing about travel, watching shows, like people that my role models that I look up to, like on the Travel Channel, Samantha Brown, Rick Steves, PBS, and Anthony Bourdain, and just all these amazing people that were Richard Bangs that were doing all these amazing shows. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like food to my soul. It's what oxygen to my being. Even if I wasn't traveling, I constantly needed to learn about travel.
So I'm curious. I understand your passion, but why this particular business as opposed to something else?
Absolutely. And I pursued a degree in journalism. My background with the intention of being a travel journalist. I even told the dean of journalism, I told him since day one, I said, I want to be a travel journalist. What do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I finished college, though, I did a couple of news internships. I moved back to Southern California from Nashville, where I went to Belmont University. When I moved back to California, I didn't have any job lined up, but I knew that I wanted to be back in Los Angeles, and I knew I had to meet people. Again, travel was my intention and was still my goal. However, working small production jobs, trying to meet people, I ended up working in sport.
Really?
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people are amazed, but I'm the girliest girl you can think of. I wear nothing but dresses and heels. I don't like wearing pants, but I know sports because I grew up watching soccer with my dad and my brother. I really know the sport, and the job just so happened to be for soccer department. So needless to say, I nailed that interview because I knew exactly what I was talking about. And I was fortunate enough to work there for a couple of years, ended up quitting. Nothing bad happened. However, I just wanted a vehicle on Craigslist. And I saved my money for about 6 months. Every 2 weeks, I put money into my savings. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anyone to try to convince me not to do it.
Okay.
And then 6 months later, I sold my car, and then I didn't tell anyone until 2 weeks before. And I only purchased a one-way ticket to Italy because it was always my dream to live in Rome.
Okay.
And I did that. So needless to say, whatever path I was doing, travel has always been inside me. I ended up moving after Italy. I stayed for about 6 months. I came back to America, had nothing. I sold everything. I quit everything. And I had about 2 weeks period of time where I was applying again to jobs, reaching out. And a friend of mine had just moved to Australia and said they were looking for Americans in Australia. And I got a Skype interview a couple of days later, and they offered me a job on the spot. So it was a 6-month contract for language school in Cairns, Australia, because I already had my degree and I already had a TEFL certificate, which also is something you can have to teach English abroad. I always had that in case I ever wanted just to travel and just have another way to make income. It just so happened to be that I had everything they were looking for and I was available and I had nothing to lose. So they offered me a 6-month contract and I moved to Australia. I was like, okay, family and friends, looks like I'm moving to Australia. And I remember very specifically my mother saying, oh my God, Jeannette, why do you have to move to the furthest places away from us? She's like, why? She's like, you don't love us? In the back of my mind, it's always been about travel. Finally, about 2 years ago, I just quit everything and I said, I'm only going to do travel now. Like, I really want to dedicate myself to travel. And honestly, ever since then, and I changed my mindset and just really believed in myself. And things have just magically been just exploding in a good way, like opportunities that I couldn't even imagine would happen are happening. And I'm very, very grateful. But to me, the reasons, the why I love the travel industry and travel and why I dedicate and I've quit and I've sacrificed so much is because to me, travel is an education and it's an experience. It's an intangible experience that no one can ever take away from you. And you're guaranteed to learn something, whether it's about a culture or a nation or a language or cuisine, and you come back a more well-rounded, knowledgeable person of the reality of the world. And it connects you on a deeper level to everyone, to humanity.
That sounds great. Give us a couple of your most memorable experiences that you've had traveling.
Wow. I don't even know where to begin. I've been very fortunate that when I travel, I meet the most incredible people. Cuba is a destination, is a country that I highly recommend everyone visit for many reasons. It's truly a gem of a country, and the locals are some of the most nice and generous people that I've ever met. And they're so humble and they're so gracious. When you visit Cuba, it's literally taking you back in time to the 50s. You really are back in a time where a lot of things have not changed. And you see all of the 1950 vehicles driving by, and you still see paintings of Fidel Castro and Che everywhere, and the buildings that have been there for so long. And there's two currencies. There's a currency for visitors and there's a currency for Cubans. And American banks don't work there, so you have to take all of cash with you, and then you have to exchange it over there because it doesn't work here. And then they just got the Wi-Fi internet a few years ago, and it works, but very, very limited, and it's a lot slower. It's actually a good thing because you're not all day. You don't see people on their cell phones all day on like social media. You see people out and about doing things, and tourists that are just experiencing the country. So that happened. And then when I was in Cuba, funny story, I was having breakfast. It was, I think it was Labor Day. It was a holiday. And everything was closed except for one small coffee shop at the bottom of a big hotel. It was a couple hours before my flight. And I decided with my friend Marella, we decided to get a quick breakfast. And we were sitting down, and there was a guy sitting down having breakfast. And, you know, while we were waiting for our food, we started, "Oh, how are you? Where are you from?" You know, he said, "Oh, my mother's from Cuba and my dad's from Luxembourg. And I'm here visiting, you know, we're here visiting family." And we had a great conversation and, you know, very nonchalant. And then we exchanged contact information. "Oh, if you're ever here, if you're ever there, feel free to contact me."
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until a couple of days later where I tried to remember his contact and saw it on my phone, and I couldn't find it. So I just decided to Google him with social media.
Mm-hmm.
Not like in a stalker way, but just because he's such a nice person, I wanted to stay in touch. Turns out that he was a prince.
Really?
Yeah. And that's just one story. Another story, when I was in Brazil, I went to Brazil for 10 days by myself as a solo lady, and against everyone else's wishes. Everyone said, "Oh, Jeannette, you know, it's so dangerous, yada, yada, don't go." Again, I went, and I had the most incredible time. And on my very last night, I was at a Marriott charging my cell phone at the bar, watching a game that was happening somewhere else. This is back in the World Cup 2014.
Okay.
And within minutes of me sitting there, down comes Alexis Lalas, who was one of the commentators for the World Cup crew. Mm-hmm. And then comes Michael Ballack, who's a German World Cup player. He used to be a international player for Germany. And basically the whole ESPN World Cup crew comes and sits next to me, and we're watching a game that's happening at the World Cup, but just in a different city. And I had worked at sports and soccer, so I knew what was going on. I knew who they were. I already went to 2 games by myself. I just could not write I couldn't even imagine that this could happen. I was watching the World Cup game in Rio with the ESPN World Cup crew. Those are just a small percentage of the things that have happened to me while traveling. And again, I feel a lot of the reason is because I am at my highest, happiest when I'm traveling. I am at my ultimate best. And if anyone knows that why I love travel so much, that's why, because you are out of your comfort zone and you're forced to learn and you're forced to grow. And whether that's meeting people or trying new foods or taking a walk by yourself, when I am traveling, whether that is near from my home base or completely on the other side of the world, I am in this vibration, this zone of just pure happiness and at my ultimate best. And I feel that's why I attract so many amazing experiences and meet so many amazing people, because I'm just so happy. And like I said before, the stories and the people that I've met, I could never even imagine, you know, meeting these people like the Prince or the World Cup, watching a game with the World Cup crew for ESPN in Rio. And even just, for instance, in Cuba, the locals that I met there, for instance, the ones that I rented an Airbnb from, I was their first guest. So they were overly just so amazing. They went and picked me up from the airport, and then they had prepared a local Cuban dinner. It was such a beautiful welcoming to their country, and I never felt alone. And here's the thing too, it's like a lot of people, and I know especially women, may have a fear of traveling solo, and I understand because of, you know, safety concerns, and it's always good to be cautious and research that you're going to, no matter if you're going alone or with other people. However, I've completed about 10 or more trips by myself. This includes Brazil, Mexico, several times, Italy, Australia. I've gone many places by myself. And I think no matter where you go, and especially for women, you have to be a savvy traveler. I never say I'm alone. Somebody asks me if I'm here alone, I always say I'm visiting my brother, I'm visiting my uncle, I'm visiting my dad, my boyfriend, etc. Taking all those safety precautions.
Sure.
But I think
that's
whether you're
advice,
a man,
by the way.
yeah, and that I'm actually surprised when I had a friend, and she went to Peru by herself 2 weeks ago, and she actually asked to meet with me, and she asked me for advice, and I told her exactly that. I said, research and, your due diligence. And I said, if anyone asks you if you're alone, say no, you're visiting your boyfriend, your uncle, your cousin, somebody who's a local there.
Right.
And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that it wasn't that common, but I guess because I'm so used to it that I just assume that everyone knows. But yeah, especially as women, we have to always be very cautious, and I never go out late by myself. I don't go to anywhere that's dark, alleys. So those are some tips that I have, but traveling alone, just like being on your own, like going out to dinner, even in your own city, it helps you grow and get to know yourself. But I think travel is that extra push because you're in a place you don't know and people you don't know. So it's kind of like you're forced to grow.
Let me ask you this. I can tell just by this conversation that travel aligns itself with your core beliefs. But what I'd like to know is how have those beliefs evolved? Your deeper belief in this is what I was meant to do. How has that evolved for you? What has been the strengthening foundation for you?
Absolutely. I've always known that I'm a natural born communicator. Communication is my strongest skill, whether that's spoken or written. I'm very passionate about communicating with people, no matter what language, or whether that's in person, over the phone, or writing. I was sitting at the dining room table as a little girl reading the newspaper before dinner, just pretending that I was Katie Couric. And that's really what I think I knew around 8 or 9 years old. I would keep doing that. And I think after some time, I would do it by myself because everyone was so annoyed by me, like my brother and sister. I think as far as travel, when you combine, when I was about 12, I learned that travel was my purpose and passion. And when I was about 6 or 7 years old, whenever I started reading, communication was my skill. So putting my passion and my skill of communication and travel together, when you identify what a travel journalist is, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Travel journalist does. They inform the public about travel. It's exactly what I meant to do. And I wasn't doing that, no matter how much money I got paid in any other job, I was never fulfilled. And I would still quit those jobs to travel. And it wasn't about till 2 years ago when I just was like, why don't I just work and travel? Why do I keep quitting all these jobs to travel? Why? And I really had to take a deep look at myself, turn the mirror back on me, and understand that I had to take responsibility for my life and for my direction, and also just work on any limited beliefs that I have, whether that was I wasn't good enough or I wasn't this enough or anything. Those were the things subconsciously that were stopping me from really going for it 100%. And also, I think when I dug in deeper, I didn't have a fear of failure because I failed plenty of times and I've made plenty of mistakes, but I always grew from them. So I never was afraid to fail. But for me, it was more of a failure of success.
Gotcha.
I had a fear of making others uncomfortable. I had a fear of like, oh, if I do really good, I'll make others uncomfortable, or, oh, will this change me? And, oh gosh, like I can make money doing what I love. Oh, it's too good to be true. I mean, those were the things that subconsciously was stopping me. I was in my own way. And then people tell me, oh, Jeannette, like, get a real job. Like, you can't travel and get paid to do that. That's like so silly. And just not listening to others and not really listening to my true self and my authentic self. It was powerful. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, the past 2 years alone in my life of self-development, I dug very deep into like my inner child and my limited beliefs and everything. But once I realized that I'm responsible for my life and that I'm not responsible for anyone else's happiness, it was liberating, because then I put myself first, working on making myself the best version of myself, the best travel expert, the best travel journalist, the best travel host, so that I can be the best for the world. So my thing is, how can I add value? How can I inspire the public to travel? How can I show them how good there is in this world? You know, I know we have the news, which is a necessary platform for us to be informed. However, what about what good is going on in the world? Because there's so much good that every country is doing and contributing, yet a lot of people just focus on the negative or only go by what's on the news, and then in essence create stereotypes, and in essence it's like a ripple effect. In essence, that will create fear in people, and then they won't go visit that country or place because of that, because of there's either a stereotype or just a belief of what it already is like.
Super. So let me ask you this question. If our listeners would like to get in contact with you, I'm sure you have social media presence, website, that type of thing. How would they go about doing that?
Yes, absolutely. Let me just say, I love people. Mm-hmm. So I always make myself approachable and available to anybody who ever has any questions about travel, or there's a destination, or even if I haven't been there, I'm always happy to connect them with somebody that I know. Mm-hmm. My Instagram is Jet Set with Jeannette. Mm-hmm. And that's with 2 N's, everyone.
Okay.
And then my Twitter is Jet Set Jeannette, and so is my Facebook. Also, people can go to my website right now. That's JeannetteReports.com. Okay. And there's also links to all my work. You can read my articles that I've done about destinations, or any videos that I've done, and just, a lot of things that I want to do. I have a lot of goals as far as travel in the future. Mm-hmm. I also want to work with philanthropy or with organizations that are also doing a lot of great impact right now, that are helping communities. That's definitely something that I want to do in the future as well.
Great. Well, before we sign off here, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
That I'm so grateful for everyone that's taking the time right now to listen, and that I hope that if you travel, keep traveling. And I hope that for any reason, if you're not traveling, trust me, you can travel. You don't have to be as extreme as I was and quit your job or sell anything. There's many, many affordable ways to travel. And if people still don't think they can, please send me an email, Jeannette@JeannetteReports.com. Give me a budget and a time frame, and I will personally show you different ways that you can travel, because it's something that I'm so passionate about, and I feel like there's just no excuse not to travel. I feel like, especially in America, mm-hmm. we have so many great opportunities to travel, and I wish that for everybody.
Super. Well, we appreciate the time today, Jeannette. And
thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And this is Ed Bracey on behalf of Making Moves in the Marketplace. We thank Jeannette Ceja for being our guest today. We look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today for Making Moves in the Marketplace. Making Moves in the Marketplace is a production of Synergy of Empowered Women, an organization that provides a platform for donors, volunteers, and advocates committed to helping women achieve their greatest potential. We look forward to our next informative broadcast, where we interview social entrepreneurs making moves in the marketplace.